when we saw the moms occupying the house, it challenged something personal within us, because property is deeply entwined with like our personhood.
You definitely have to make yourself loud and clear, or you're gonna suffer in the cracks.
No one wants to be put in a position where you have to squat to be in a house.
Everybody that's homeless not on drugs. Everybody that's homeless do not have a job. Some of those people just cannot afford to pay rent.
Good luck with that, ladies. That was my initial thought, but I admire their tenacity.
I thought that was amazing.
I have mixed feelings about it. I don't think that it's okay to just take over a house, but at the same time I understood the fact that, people got to live and raise their children. And the prices are really high. Who wants to live on the streets?
Corporations buying up single-family homes in predominantly of color neighborhoods? No, not for it.
The rhetoric around housing is a human right should be driving a lot of our policy.
So we got word, I'm not sure how many people know, that there was a locksmith at the corner. How long are you all willing to stand for Moms for Housing? All night. We're not gonna make too much noise. We know it's babies in the neighborhood. But I think until 10 o'clock, I think we need to turn up.
They was gonna have to take about 200 people to jail to get to us. And then things started transpiring that was just like, out of everybody's control. It started raining, and so I was like, tell them people go home.
At some point, Misty was like, Carol, go home. Go home, get some rest, come back in the morning. And I was like, it doesn't feel right. We said we were gonna stay and just wait. She was like, no, you need to go. You need to go and take your security guard with you.
Me and Tolani were actually in the kids' room on the bunk bed, and we watched out all night and just laughed on the bed and talked and just reflected on things. And then it's like Tolani says, the spiritual advisor, she said, they're gonna come.
And it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I saw that our team out front was down to 3-4 people. I was like, oh, we naked. I knew, we naked. When they come, they coming right in.
This morning, still very quiet out here on Magnolia Street in Oakland. You can see some folks have gathered to kind of show some support outside.
So I knew, because I'm from the hood, I know how the police sit and watch and scout stuff out. So I knew they was watching us all this whole time. And I heard noise, more and more. I looked out the window, and they was coming down the block.
Grab some tape.
Right there to that pole.
I can tell you this happened very suddenly. This morning, Alameda County Sheriff's deputies rolled up in different vans and vehicles.
Sheriff's office here for the eviction. I need you to come to the door.
I was live on air with Carol at Democracy Now!
Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us.
I hear in my ear the sound guy, the sound engineer, they're at the house now.
Carol, we just hear that there was a text that says the sheriff is knocking on the door and saying people have to clear out.
And I looked at Dominique just in shock for a split second.
Is that your understanding as we're speaking?
They gotta go.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we gotta go. We gotta go.
We were looking at Amy on Democracy Now! And my husband said, oh, gotta go. We gotta go over there. And so we jumped up and got our clothes on and drove over there.
No justice, no peace, no racist police.
I was in bed. I was sick. I got a call and was told they're moving on the house.
Shame, 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 shame.
What? This is ridiculous. This was all unheard of. And all because we want a place to live, for our kids to have a place to lay their head. By then they boo, 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 come out.
All these men, it was not one female officer. I felt really intimidated.
And we see one of the women coming out now.
When I came out the door, I kind of froze up because to see a big gun, my PTSD kicked in.
And at this point, the women are coming out. It looks like their hands are restrained behind their back.
of women and children with AR-15s and tanks. This what you do with your life?
Well, definitely supporters of the Moms for Housing have mobilized. You see them out here in huge numbers. We know that the moms are out. 2 of them were taken out in restraints.
Else what? Else what?
There seems to be a bit of a confrontation between several people out on 30th Street, which is the adjacent street. They are yelling at the officers who are here in armored vehicles.
But listen, do what I can do. I'm asking you, how do you feel threatened when you got a tank right behind you? A tank. A bunch of your partners with AR-15s, magazines, loaded.
So when my comrade, my brother, saw that they had shown up with tanks and AR-15s for black women and children, he was angry. He was righteously angry.
Y'all bringing in the troops?
I didn't want him harmed that night. And so, yeah, much to his chagrin, I put myself between him and the cops.
These are the agents of a system. Some of these might not agree with coming and taking mothers and babies, but you know what they did? When they got the call, they came.
They came anyway.
Don't let them tell you that they got these tanks, AR-15, military-grade weaponry for the criminals, for the terrorists. They got them for mothers and babies.
All to keep us quiet. Our money.
They got them for mothers and babies.
This is out of Dickens. You put a woman and children out of a place to live because they didn't have the money to live there, and you came with troops in the night? Are you serious? Nobody in this city, nobody, no elected official said, I'm going out, you got to kill me first. You're going to have to kill me. This is an outrage. This city should hang its head in shame.
Was this all worth it?
Hell yeah. Yeah. It's worth it. This is a movement. This is not the end. Them going to jail and all of this house was a statement. It was a symbol of what needs to happen in Oakland. This was an absolute victory. We're still victorious and we're going to keep it moving.
Make it a movement. They came to prove a point for corporations. They came to prove a point to the people that don't corporations, don't with corporate money. Else we will send the shock troops for you.
They were like, your mom's in jail. And I was like, for real? I said, she's in jail. They was like, look, she's on everything. And my teachers was like, look, she's on, they live right now at the jail. And I was like, what? One of my favorite teachers, Miss Raya, she was just like, oh my gosh. She was like, I need to help out. I'm so proud of your mom. And all the kids were like, your mom's on news. She's like, dang, your mom hecka active in the school and hecka active like around the world. And I was just like, yeah. And I was like, that's my mom. What can I say? I'm very proud, of her and, what we all went through, It means a lot. And so she taught me, don't quit, just keep going.
I was scared that she was in jail, but I was still proud, that she was going that far for what she believed in.
I called her when she got out. I was like, you gotta keep fighting, you can't stop here.
Man, I'm fighting this fight, period.
A defiant and re-energized Misty Cross walked out of Santa Rita Jail in Dublin Tuesday afternoon, capping off a dramatic day.
You want to try to take our voice? All you did was make this fight more stronger in us. The flame is burning so hard inside of my soul.
What's your reaction to the eviction?
My heart goes out to those mothers. These are mothers. They're not criminals. They are mothers that have engaged in what I believe is a courageous act of civil disobedience to really highlight our housing crisis. And I was pretty shocked to see the tactics that were used to take them out of the home in the early dawn hours.
The evictions are always the sheriff's business. The clients, in this case Wedgwood, really have nothing to do with the timing, with the methodology whatsoever.
Did you have any conversations with the sheriff's office ahead of time?
I was not aware that the eviction was going to happen. I did call the sheriff after the fact to let him know it was my call that our officers not respond to his request for assistance. There is a time-honored tradition in law enforcement to respond to requests for mutual aid. So it was a big deal for Oakland to say no, and I wanted the sheriff to know that that was my call.
Check, check, check. We effected the eviction this morning about 5:15 a.m. That was by design. There were about 5 or so people out front. They were kind of keeping vigil throughout the night, looking out. We had lookouts. We had different groups involved in this movement. Some are associated with some of the violent protests that we had seen throughout the Bay Area, and we had reason to believe that had we gone in there at any time other than the early morning hours, it was likely we would end up in a serious confrontation with those folks.
Well, I can only assume that he's talking about the Anti-Police Terror Project, which isn't anti-cop, it's anti-police terror. And I can only assume he's talking about the protests that have happened in these streets, none of which have been violent until the police escalated, and the police were the ones doing the violence.
We did encounter quite a bit of hostility from those folks. Most of it was verbal. We did get some things thrown at us, and there were some threats from people in the crowd, but our personnel showed tremendous restraint in regards to dealing with this.
A lot of people are wondering why a SWAT team was called out for moms and children. That was the biggest thing I heard after you guys left.
Yeah, that was not a SWAT team. We did have a tactical element out there, and it was rather small. You've probably seen them on some of the news footage that's out there. We made tremendous steps to make sure that we did not look like a militarized force going in there. We obviously know what the optics are. We did not want to go in there with a heavy footprint, and we tried to stick to our basic uniforms and our basic lowest level approach to the situation.
There are those who believe that America is a nation that is primarily defined by its white constituents. But there are many of us that say America would not be America without everyone. We hold the position that all of these stories are important. The African American Museum and Library is a very important place where we can look at the past, but it's an important place where we can also project, envision the future. And if we understand America to be an ongoing project, there is room for its continued evolution. How do we want it to evolve? And that's the question that we have to ask ourselves. From Duke Ellington to Miles Davis. Okay, we're looking here at the communication organ of the Black Panther Party. And so we have a collection of Black Panther newspapers.
All power to the people!
How is it that this group remains vilified in the minds of so many today? How is it that people cannot see the breakfast program, the medical clinics, as very important? And why would that be necessary in a society that has so much but did so little for this black population here in Oakland?
When you joined the Black Panther Party, we actually all thought we were going to get killed. Were we afraid? Of course we were afraid, but you have to operate past fear, get past fear. You then realize that this stuff could be scary if you wanted it to be, or it could be the most glorious thing that you could possibly imagine. Everybody had to be trained on weapons. Everybody had to work in the breakfast program, and everybody had to sell papers. If you didn't do anything else, you had to sell papers. And you had to be 24 hours committed. There was no As we say, no part-time Panther, no part-time revolutionary.
For years now, all liberation struggles have been fought regarding territory and regarding the seizure of land.
The bottom line was we said housing is a human right. I mean, you can't deny a person shelter because you don't have money.
When you talk about Oakland history, a lot of times people kind of start with the Panthers and they don't see the Panthers in any kind of continuum. A lot of the people that were involved in the Panthers were children of Pullman porters. They were certainly participants in the Black migration. By the time the World War II ended, we already had in Oakland a number of federal housing projects.
The cancer of housing decay, almost in the shadow of the City Hall, can be found the end result of this disease, the slum. Yes, this too is Oakland.
So Oakland comes up with a neighborhood renewal plan that was introduced in the late 50s.
Oakland City Council has acted
to take the blighted areas, which certainly West Oakland was identified as a blighted area and a ghetto, and clean that up.
Like a cancer, it feeds upon and drains the economy and vitality of the entire city. The taxpayers in the good areas of the city pay for the slum.
The argument went it would improve the entire city.
City lands are reevaluated, and undesirable areas are leveled to the ground.
Big chunks of West Oakland were leveled in the early 60s. And for years, nothing happened. You're seeing people being displaced across the country to build these housing units.
To clear bad slums, you must tear them down. You cannot tear them down unless you provide other dwellings to rehouse the people who live in slums.
And that's the sin of displacement, you know, to not have a solution for people.
Urban renewal is a program for all of Oakland. It can and it will revitalize our city's life and values.
The creation of segregation was one of the motives behind urban renewal projects. Urban renewal funds were used in many ways similar to the way highway funds were used.
Traveling over modern highways, people can escape from the crowded cities and move outward in search of open space.
And in many, many cases, local officials designed the routes of those highways for purposes of racial exclusion and segregation.
This is the American dream of freedom on wheels.
Valuable city space disappears beneath ribbons of concrete and steel.
The construction of BART, the freeway construction, the construction of the big post office down there, all of that added to the displacement of African Americans and other people out of West Oakland. In the same period as redevelopment efforts were being actualized, we have, for a variety of reasons, the creation of the Black Panther Party.
All power to the people is becoming a reality.
I would say 73, 74, there was a battle over this very area. As a matter of fact, 400 black people had been removed from West Oakland to create a way for a freeway connector. And we were pretty powerful at that time because we had brought all the chapters of the Black Panther Party into Oakland when Bobby Seale and I ran for office in 1973. We were a force to be reckoned with, and people didn't ignore us, not easily.
Modern apartment buildings are constructed in an attempt to attract people back to the city.
There's no excuse for black people to run around here without housing. There's no excuse for people to be living in the street. There is money here.
But Oakland's new glamour and prosperity are not shared equally by all of its citizens. Nearly half of the city's population is non-white, and many are poor.
Wealth exists in that port right down the street there. These people shouldn't have asthma, they should have money.
I see this as a lunch counter sit-in.
Today's action was inspired by Moms for Housing.
We were able to create a movement.
The Moms for Housing movement launched one of its founders right into the Oakland City Council as well.
Were you surprised by the election results?
Honestly, I was not surprised.